Everybody, and welcome to the committee meeting of Tuesday 5th September. So it's good morning all members, and welcome to the meeting. Some people here from obviously the public. As you'll appreciate, we have a full agenda of strategic business to deal with today, so it is my intention to ensure we deal with this thoroughly in order to make important decisions for the benefit of local people. I'll take this opportunity of reminding everyone that the meeting will be recorded and that the recording will subsequently be available for public listening. Okay, from that, can we get the Sederunt apologies, please, Claire?
Thank you, Chairman. 20 members present this morning. Just the one apology from Councillor Wood.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? Sean?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Item 13, I've taken advice. Chair of Annan Regeneration Steering Group, and a subgroup of that is the Annan Play Park Steering Group, which I sit on in an advisory capacity, so declaring interest, but we'll be staying in for that item.
Okay, thank you. Ian?
Yeah, it's item 11. It's actually on behalf of the Conservative Group. There's a reference made to the involvement of Eva Milroy. We've got Gilroy on board. Eva Milroy, she's the wife of the Conservative Party chairman locally, but her involvement is such that we're not going to withdraw from the meeting.
Thanks very much, Ian. I'm assuming you'll all stay for that item. Yeah, okay. Okay, personally, I declare an interest in item 14, and I'll vacate the chair for that. John will chair that item in the agenda. The reason is my daughter actually is one of the senior managers in Icebowl that may be a recipient of the money that you may decide to award. So I'm doing the prudent thing and remove myself from the meeting. Okay. Are there any other declarations of interest? No. Thank you. We move to the minute of the 13th of June. The minutes for approval.
Happy to move.
And I'm happy to second. Okay, we'll move on to full agenda item number 4, the Community Services Budget for 2017-18. Report by the Director of Communities. The report provides members with the details of the Communities Budget for 2017-18. It also provides members with the relevant activity-based budget estimates information. Derek, the Director, will take any questions in the report. So it's up for scrutiny. Reasonable questions. Okay, I'm taking from that. It's a factual document, and everybody's happy with it. Yeah. So we'll move on to the recommendations. We've noted and reviewed, so we're happy to note and review. We've done that. Thank you very much. Okay, item 5, the Revenue Monitoring Report for 2017-18 for the period ending the 31st of July. This report provides members with an overview of the financial performance against budget for the Communities Directorate based on the monitoring information for the period up to the 31st of July. I have to say personally I'm encouraged that the Directorate continues to display sound budget management arrangements, with the forecast projected to be a small underspend at the end of the financial year. Again, Derek will be here to take any questions on the report. Ian?
Thank you, Chairman. It's noted that customer services has an overspend of 135,000. The report mentions that most of that is down to the failure to relocate customer services in Annan. A report later on today shows that that loss is 75,000, which means there's £60,000 adrift somewhere. There's just some explanation on where that £60,000 loss is. And secondly, in relation to libraries, I understand there are some teething difficulties with the software system that's involved in libraries, and I'm just wondering if that's going to have a budget pressure.
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of the customer services, I'll deal with that specifically, and I'll ask Harry Hay if he's in a position to advise members in relation to the library system. Customer service is obviously a big budget, and within that, therefore, the position is that half of the current overspend is in relation to Gretna. The other half is primarily seasonal adjustments because of the nature of that service. Members will appreciate it deals with homelessness. It deals with universal credit, and therefore the actual proportion of that budget is probably about 1% variance. So in an overall budget expenditure for the Directorate of 27 million, that variance is very, very small. It's 4 months into the financial year, and at this point it is what we would have expected just to be that slight variance. So there's no specific area that is causing officers to have concern. It's an overall position, but as I say, primarily it's a reflection on the type of service and the volatility of some of both the services provided as well as the income that we would expect to receive. And as I say, it's early stages at this point, but no cause for concern.
Okay, is that Harry?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, in relation to the library management system, the system itself is over 14 years old and has really reached the end of its serviceable life. It was causing real functionality problems, so the replacement will not have any impact on the revenue budget. It will be funded via the Council's capital IT programme, and we're currently working with colleagues in Business Technology Solutions to go through the procurement process.
Just a factual question, Chairman. It's on page 33 with respect to the Community and Neighbourhood Services initial review. We were just talking about the budget pressures in the narrative, and it's talked about caused by the Community Payback Scheme. Could somebody just give me a one-sentence explanation of what's going on there?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to do so. Simple explanation is that it's a good news story because there are less people on community payback for good reasons within Dumfries and Galloway, so therefore there are less people able to help us. So our projected numbers have reduced, which causes implications for us. So good news story in terms of community safety. Thank you.
Thank you for the explanation.
Can I just add as well, I actually asked Derek to look at this specifically to see if it would be a budget pressure and look into it and thank him for that. So that was a concern that I had as well. I think it's also one of the dangers of using a service which at best is patchy, right? Because you don't know who's going to be through the door from day to day, so to make a long-term commitment to something is really difficult. So I don't think there's any apportionment of blame there. I would suggest it's, as Derek said, a good news story. We're having less people in community service. Anyone else? No. In that case then, I'm happy to move to the recommendations for item 5. I asked to note that based on monitoring the position at the end of July, communities are projecting a small underspend of £6,000. 2, progress against the delivery of the agreed savings applied to the 2017-18 communities budget. And 3, progress on the delivery of policy development initiatives, including within communities budget. We agreed? Right. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 6. This is the assessment of the Directorate Business Plan performance reported by, again, Derek, the Director. The report provides members with an assessment of the Directorate's performance on the delivery of the 2015-18 Business Plan. In overall terms, the Directorate is delivering a good performance with only 7 KPIs and projects out with target. The information on these is detailed in the exception reports. As members know, the Communities Directorate is leading on new ways of working with communities, which reflects our Council's ambition to be at the forefront of implementing the principles of community empowerment. It is clear from the performance information that steady progress is being made, and the Director would be pleased to respond to any specific points members may have. So Derek is actually here, again, obviously, to answer any questions. So I'm opening it up.
Thank you, Chair. I'm on page 52, and I'm looking at the first line, which covers the percentage of HMO licence applications processed within 12 months. Is 12? I notice that's a statutory requirement. Could we lower that target? Because obviously 12 months is a long time to wait for a licence and keep potentially homeless people homeless.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, we've also got other KPIs in relation to our processing of these applications. One of the indicators that we are suggesting is amended is the number of HMO applications that are referred to licensing panel, which isn't obviously necessarily a good news story, simply because we're trying to be more proactive to make sure that these issues don't happen in the first instance. If members wished to look at that, we could certainly come back with revisions. We certainly don't wait until the 12 months before they're issued. We do make a genuine commitment to process those as quickly as possible. They're not necessarily just in relation to homelessness service. Houses of multiple occupancy are simply down to the number of unrelated parties that are in a particular property.
That answer, David, yeah?
Yeah, I was asking whether we could just move the target, make it a 3-month target, for example.
No, feel that. Thanks, Chairman. I think the statutory requirement is 12 months. I think members would need to have a full report before them before that decision was taken. My instinct would say moving it to 3 months would be an unrealistic target given the complexity of HMOs, and therefore we would be setting ourselves potentially an unrealistic target. Happy if members wishes to look at that and certainly provide the members with a briefing on the potential implications, but certainly my instinct would say it's a national indicator, 12 months is the time scale, there'll be good reason for that, but more than happy to look at it, but without setting ourselves a target that would be unrealistic.
Okay, David? Yeah.
Yes, just 12 months seems unrealistically long to me, given that you know, if you had a property and wanted to open it up for people to stay there, 12 months, you know, and hitting it by 100% probably indicates there might be room for us to be more ambitious with that target. I don't know if there's any other members who would support that view, though.
I take your point, and I think when we redo the business plan after the business for this administration goes through full council, that can all be covered and dealt with then. So we can look at it and do it through your political grouping as it comes forward. Anyone else? No? Sorry, Jane?
Thanks very much. Yes, it's just another point that I think we might look at, but it might be impossible to change. But I'd be very pleased to have people's thoughts on it. It's about the amount, the percentage of income that we actually collect on council tax. It used to be something that we were really very hot on. Such members used to receive briefings on it, not quite weekly, but it seemed to be like that. I'm just looking at this. At the moment, we're collecting 95.9%. This is on page 53. We're collecting 95.9% of what we are supposed to collect, which means that every £4, for every 100, we're not collecting £4. And, Chairman, I would just like to point out that that's 2.36 million that we are not collecting. Now, of course, we won't collect everything. We can't. But even if we collected half a percentage point more, there would still be a better result and mean that we have less pressure on our budget. So I wonder if that could be something that we might also look at when we are considering targets in the next session.
Thank you, Chair. Quite as the member indicates, it has been a target Dumfries and Galloway has regularly discussed and briefed members on. I think the position is we are still performing in the top 5 councils in Scotland. That doesn't mean to say we're complacent about it. It means to say that we are confident that we have rigorous processes in place to ensure that we maximise the full recovery of council tax where it's due. Unfortunately, the financial position facing increasing numbers of people tends to suggest that the gap is widening between our collection rates in previous years. So again, more than happy to look at that, but more importantly, reassure all members that we are still performing as one of the top 5 councils in Scotland, and we have rigorous processes in place, and I'm confident that that due diligence is resulting in that high performance, but there's always room for improvement, and the point is well made in terms of that lost income to services, and be assured that officers take that very seriously.
Okay, I've got Ian Crothers and then David again.
Yeah, just briefly in regards to the point that David made earlier. I mean, I thought at 2.1 we might be able to pick that up. We're asked to review the overall summary of the end of year performance, and if we can actually pick up that point what David's saying in regards to the homelessness target, or the, should say, the housing in multiple occupation, which is, I wonder if we could have picked it up there, Chairman. Would that be an option?
Yeah, we can look at it when we get the discussion at the end, and then we'll take it forward from there. Yeah. David?
I'm back on page 52 again. The average number of days lost, all other non-teacher local government employees through sickness and absence, appears to be 50% higher than it might be. I'd like to ask, is the 9-day figure, is that taken from other councillors or other similar professions, or and also the trend doesn't seem to be a very good one over the last 3 years now. I'm wondering what we can do to address that, because I mean the 50% over all the employees would be quite significant.
Thank you, Chairman, and you and the Vice Chair have certainly discussed this at length with us, and again reassure all members, the management team take the issue of maximising attendance very seriously, and the current position we are in, quite frankly, is not good enough, and therefore reassure members that that point that's been made today is well received and well made. As we've set out in the exception report, the Directorate has now firmly established, and putting it quite simply, that means that the staff reorganisation has settled down, and therefore we have now inherited, unfortunately, a number of long-standing maximising attendance issues, which I would assure members are now being dealt with. Bear in mind this is historical data which takes us up to the end of the last financial year, so to some extent it's now retrospective. I would reassure the member that the management team and all supervisors are absolutely committed to all of the measures that are required to ensuring that we have a healthy workforce, and that figure is significantly reduced in the year ahead. Members will be aware, Policy and Resources Committee this month will also consider the overall Council's workforce establishment arrangements, which will look at this issue across the whole Council. The figure of the average is a figure that's established in local government in Scotland. It's an average figure, the 9 days, and quite clearly that's benchmarked with good evidence. And the fact that the Directorate is currently well above that, it does not make pleasant reading, and would assure all members, as I've said, as in the exception report, every action is being taken to bring about the turnaround that's required. As I've said in the earlier paragraphs in the introduction to the report, the key to that is morale within the workforce, it's staff communication, and it's involving staff in key initiatives such as Healthy Working Lives, which, as members will appreciate, the Council recently received Gold Award for. So we believe we have the ability to turn that around, and therefore would wish to reassure members the point on absence is one of the highest priorities currently for the management team.
Rob?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm looking at page 60. I think it's important we scrutinise things that are maybe not necessarily going as well as we would hope, but equally it's quite important that we have to look at things which are doing particularly well as well. So I note that the processing time for crisis grants has decreased from 1 day to less than half a day. That is certainly where we would want this to be, I think. It's a recognition that these are crisis grants. However, it does also beg two questions. It's very good performance. However, reflecting on what the Director was saying in relation to council tax and people's overall financial positions, are we, or have we yet detected any increase in demand for this particular service? And whether we have or not, how confident are we that we'll be able to maintain the level of performance that we've now reached? I guess particularly if there is any potential increase in demand.
Thank you, Chairman. Harry Hay will give a more detailed answer, members, but just to say that I've spent some time with the team involved in this service, just to see for myself firsthand the types of inquiries that come in, and it would certainly be no understatement to say that it certainly is those vulnerable people who are very much at risk in terms of the financial pressures they're facing, and the word adequately describes the situation. It is a crisis grant, and the times that I have directly been involved in dealing with the service and seeing how they handle customers has certainly been most impressive, and the feedback from the recipients of those grants is very often received by the council, and they are very much appreciated. And I'll leave Harry just to give you some more details, Chairman.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, as Derek said, obviously dealing with the most vulnerable is one of the Council's highest priorities, and I've certainly witnessed the team that administer these grants doing it with great skill and empathy. The very nature of the fact that they've applied for a crisis grant can very often be as a result of some quite challenging circumstances in their personal life, so clearly we want to get funding that they're entitled to out as quickly as possible. We've got another item on this agenda later on in terms of tackling poverty, and there are some proposals for members' consideration that absolutely put this client group and the issues surrounding crisis grants at the centre of that. And to answer Councillor Davison's question in terms of am I confident that we can keep this performance going, the answer is most definitely yes.
Thank you. Just a personal observation on this, Harry. You know, the last sentence of the how are we performing part is during the financial year we processed 4,388 applications. A wee bit of clarity on that might have helped some members to give us a better idea of perspective. You know, to be blasé about it, is that 100 people or 10 people who applied 438 times? No, I don't think it is. So we need, I would suggest in that report, if Wendy and the team can actually even share that information with members by email. Yep. It just gives us a clearer picture of what's actually been happening. Thanks. I've got Ian Blake and then Graham.
Thank you, Chairman. It's page 69, dealing with the elected members' inquiry service. I note that for the last 3 years, we certainly have not managed to achieve the target. But it's not so much not achieving the target concerns me, it's more about the quality of response that we do get with some of the inquiries that we do put in. A fairly normal one now is that, yes, your complaint is noted, it will be put in a work list and will be dealt with should funds become available. That is not the type of response I would like, and repeatedly have to put it back to them saying, no, you tell me when it is on the work list and when is the work, and when has the work been done. I would just like to get comments on it. I'm very much aware that not all members use this service, but getting an idea of how many of the 43 members do, and I don't mean to identify them, but just the numbers would be of interest as well.
Ian, can I just ask you to clarify, are we talking about the EMS system in general, or are you talking about EMS inquiries through the communities directorate?
EMS in general, not
thanks very much.
Not communities.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Thank you, Chairman. Deal with the easy one first. We're looking at about 50% of members currently actively using the system, and I would hope that that would increase once we can demonstrate the effectiveness of the service. And I think the member's quite right, and I'm sure other members would agree, that it's both the speed and the quality of the response that matters. And I can assure all members there's not a day goes by where I emphasise these points, and at times, quite frankly, I'm embarrassed when I see some of the responses members receive. And I'm not mix my words with that. It's not good enough on occasions, and it needs to improve. Members need to be reassured that every action is being taken to achieve that. One of the clear directions we've had from the members has been to ensure we bring the system into a far more modern use of technology, and looking at, for example, linking it in with caseload management, etc. And again, I see clear expressions of support for that. So all political groups have been given the opportunity to help be involved in turning this around, because the identification of what the system is you want, how it would work for you more effectively, is crucial. And as I say, there will be a meeting involving members and officers. I think it's scheduled for next week, and all groups have been given ample time to bring forward nominations to sit on that group for the purpose of ensuring that you as the customers shape and determine what system and what type of service you want going forward. So in the meantime, you reassure members that we are continuing to drive the quality of the responses to be better, and where corrective action is needed, that is being taken. And secondly, the bigger picture that members have given us clear direction on is we want to look at a revamp with a particular consideration of the caseload management system, which seems to be well familiar with many who work in the parliamentary system. So that discussion will start to take forward with members next week. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks. Graham?
Well, Councillor Bright, maybe stole my thunder, mentioned about EMS. You're talking about obviously an overhaul of the system. There's a simple way of doing this. The simple system, when an elected member makes an inquiry, you have an EMS reference number. What should actually happen, the response sometimes comes back to elected member. What tends to come back, this will be dealt with, an officer will be looking into it. It's never dealt with. In some cases, I've had to go out and physically look at jobs myself at night time to see if it's not been done. But there's a way around that. You've got a reference number. Within 14 days or 28 days, the elected member should be notified that the job has been completed. And then we know we can take it off the system. The problem is that these jobs are put on the system and they're never taken off. And sometimes it could be 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And it's quite embarrassing for me representing North West Dumfries and many other councillors representing the wards around here. The jobs are not done. There is, in all fairness, sometimes the system is working, but I would say we need a 14 days to 28 days, a sort of period that comes back. The officer says, well, the job has been dealt with, Councillor Bell, on such and such a time at that date. And that's the way it should be done. It's like running a business on a farm. You know when the wheat, the barley is ready to harvest. You know when it's ready to be put in the shed. It's timekeeping and bookkeeping. This is what we need to do here.
Simply, Chair, reaffirm the direction you and the Vice Chair have given officers is along these lines, so it's certainly reaffirming that the approach we are taking is required to be done. I would also have to say what we have to get better at is also acknowledging that all of the expectations that there may be out there are becoming more increasingly difficult to always meet, and therefore sometimes we have to be in a position where we have to give realistic answers, and that might be that at the present time there is no plan for that work to be undertaken, but the situation will be continually reviewed, or it will be reviewed in 6 months. And I know all members are understanding of that, so the points made by Councillor Bell are made absolutely with full intention and they're helpful, and we've had regular discussions. So I share these sentiments, and that's the very purpose of involving members in the new arrangements and the new system, because there is quite clearly an appetite for members to help us to improve things, and you can be assured of that commitment to do that.
Jim?
Thanks, Chair. For the benefit of the two dinosaurs at this side of the room, I presume that irrespective, and I take it as a given, and I know Derek will say aye, but I presume irrespective of how matters are raised with members of staff, that they will be dealt with on behalf of the member without the need to engage in the EMES system. I don't need a reference number. I'm quite confident in the ability and the responsibility that the staff take. I just want an assurance, absolute assurance from Derek, I don't need to use this system to get things done, and I would hope members would be reminded of that, that it's simply a mechanism. If members want to use it, it's no requirement.
Thank you, Chair. A nice easy question from Councillor Dempster. I think the simple answer is that ultimately members will make their own decisions how they wish to undertake their role, and it's not the prerogative of officers to become embroiled in how that is. Therefore, if it's working for members not using EMES, clearly it's within their gift to continue to not use EMES. However, we would hope that with a revamped system, there are clear benefits to elected members in terms of providing responsive service and, more importantly, an audit trail that keeps everybody clear in terms of communication. All too often, members of the public, community councils, all clearly indicate that they've contacted the council and nothing has happened. And the simple question we always ask for in these situations is, can you give us an indication of who wrote, when did you write, etc., who did you speak to? And that lack of audit trail that sometimes isn't there makes the job very difficult to then just find out what the detail was. So a robust, open system allows everybody to have clarity that in fact inquiries were submitted, they have been received and they have been recorded. Clearly, if members are finding that they don't need that and it's working for them, we're happy, and therefore it's the prerogative of members to determine how they carry out their cases and their workload as a constituency elected member.
Okay, I think we've given this a fair old crack, guys. So I'm going to move to the recommendations. We're asked to review the overall summary of business plan for April 16 to March 17, which includes performance information on health and safety, note the examples of good performance, scrutinise the exception reports, and consider whether the actions proposed are adequate to improve performance and enable future monitoring of areas which have additions, deletions or amendments to Community's Business Plan 2017-18. In the absence, Ian, yeah, I thought you were coming in.
Just a point, you should have given me an opportunity. I just wondered if, I mean, we look at the business plan forthcoming over the next, forget if it's quarterly or every 6 months, but we see it again, this year's business plan in reference to the HMO. I think even potentially, well, no, we'll be able to scrutinise other what David brought up, but in relation to the HMO licensing 12-month target, I think we need to review that sooner rather than later. And is that an opportunity in the next quarter or 6 months in which to do that?
Happy to do that, Ian. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Sorry, Chair, yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. What I'm reassured by is that we're not in a position where we're agreeing today that a target should be changed without the full list of information. So when the next time we look at the business plan, which will be a few months from now, what we'll clearly do is come forward with the analysis of the average time, because quite clearly we're hitting 100% just now, so it's working well. If we're actually dealing with the majority of applications within 9 months, there's clearly an opportunity to review the target. So the simple point would be we're best doing that with the fullest information rather than simply on the belief that we can change it. Thank you.
Okay then, so with that we'll move on to item 7, which is the capital investment strategy land asset class monitoring 2017-18 for the period ending the 31st of July. The report provides members with an overview of the agreed capital investment strategy for the land asset class. Harry Thompson's here to take any questions, and I'll just hand it over to members for questions. Sean, please.
Thanks, Chair. It's just really a request. Really, I'd actually spoke to an officer, emailed an officer. I think it's in relation to Eastriggs Plainfield. There was a drainage survey done through the council, and we've got that kind of quotation back on the cost of that. I did ask if there was the potential to get that on the reserve list, because I haven't seen a reserve list. So I'm just wondering if I could actually forward the details of the survey to Harry and ask if there's a possibility to get that put on the reserve list.
Yeah, Chair, happy to take those details from the member and discuss with officers, and we will update the committee at the next meeting in any case in terms of progress on the capital programme.
Harry, this is kind of side field here, but are you able then to give the members of the committee a view of the reserve list and where people are?
We can certainly look to bring forward a report which details those projects which would be included in the, or potentially be included in the programme for next year. As members will appreciate, there's 425,000 available from within the land asset class for dealing with burial grounds, playgrounds, play equipment in the course of one financial year, and it's a fairly lengthy programme for projects detailed in the appendix to the report. However, there is potential for putting together a report which details those which will be dealt with in the next year.
Thanks. I think what I'm getting at is I didn't want to see like the old scenario, you're on the housing list but you don't know where you are, you know, because it's top secret, and that just wouldn't be a good place to be. So that would be really helpful if you can do that. Jim, I think you're wanting in.
Thanks, Chair. I know the answer will be yes, but it's on page 97, the park gardens allotments, amenity space. In this stale area, replace various litter bins, replace various wooden benches, and over the page, repair and replace play equipment. There's figures attached to the paper, but there's no text about what's actually happening. And I know work is being done. Is that just a slow process because this deal's bigger? Or is there still stuff to do, Harry? And at some stage, will we get an indication of what's being placed where, or is that too complex?
No, I can certainly ask officers to put together a programme of scheduled replacement for the play equipment within this Dale area. I think the issue is there is a significant number of parks with play equipment that require replacement, and we need to bring that detail forward for members' benefit.
I wasn't meaning just play equipment, Chair, because there's litter bins as well, there's broken seats, and it's how we deal with that. In fact, it's how we get that information collated. I don't know whether that comes in an EMAS form or no, where we broken benches, and I've still got in this Dale district waste bins, and they're not in the best of condition. It's how we deal with that and how we have a programme that. I'd just be interested to know how that comes about, Harry. And if it's not something that we've got to hand, I wouldn't want to give extra work. We'll just get it some other time.
Chair, it's certainly information we don't have to hand at this point in time. We will need it to programme the replacements. If there are Nistdale District Council bins out there and they're serviceable, they will remain in place. If they're not serviceable, then they'll have to be reviewed.
I'll keep that for another time. Thanks, Chair.
Start again. Members are asked to note the financial and physical progress on the projects within the land asset class capital programme for 2016-17 as reflected in the appendix to this report. You happy? Okay, thank you very much. Move on to item 8. This report presents members with a Dumfries and Galloway Council participation request strategy and procedure for their agreement. I'm aware that some members were able to take part in the seminar on participation requests, and the feedback from members has been positive. Jamie Ferguson is here to answer any questions on the report, and I'm minded just to go straight to questions. Okay, thanks. We'll move to recommendations. Just before we do, sorry, David, you want in?
Yeah, sorry for being a bit late there. I'm on page 115 and delivering the strategy. We will set out clear procedures for participation requests, etc. I'm worried if we help a body make a request financially that we're kind of skewing the market a bit, and I'm not sure to what extent our help should go. And we haven't set that out yet, and yet I think later today we're going to talk about allocating a substantial amount of money to a group making a request. So I just would like a bit of clarification about whether that's going to, well, it's supposedly going to be our policy. Have we got a policy in place at the moment, and what constitutes support, basically?
Jamie, have you got a short answer for that one? As a whole seminar?
No. The short answer is that when a participation request is received, each department that is dealing with that participation request will exercise due diligence. And that's certainly something that came out at the members' seminar that members were very keen to see happen. So the question of is there a policy in place at the moment? No, there isn't a policy in place right now. That's what this committee is making decision on. But certainly in terms of any request that comes to us, due diligence, and that covers a wide range of applications, will be applied.
Okay, David. Right. Remember that this is us putting in place a strategy as required under the Community Empowerment Act. So this is a sort of kind of legal process we're going through here on this item here. But you can raise it later if you feel it's relevant. And okay. 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 Thanks very much. And is there anyone else got any questions for Jamie? Well, in that case, then we'll just move to recommendations. Are we happy to agree Council Participation Request Strategy, which is Appendix 1? Right. It's actually based on the 4 objectives summarised in paragraph 3.13 and includes an action plan to achieve it, and 2, the Council Participation Request Procedure, which is Appendix 2. Okay, we're happy with that? Agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move on to item 9, Strategic Housing Investment Plan Update, report by Head of Customer Services. Again, the report requests the members update the projects to be contained within the Council's Strategic Housing Investment Plan, commonly known as the SHIP. This Council is committed to delivering new affordable homes, and the SHIP reinforces our determination to deliver on this commitment. Again, we've got Jim O'Neill and some of his staff here to answer specific questions on this, and I think I'll just move straight to questions for Jim. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Just looking at previous reports that have came to the House and Subcommittee for new additions, appendices were included which had limited financial information. I was just wondering if that was available to go, because there's 13 new additions to go into the SHIP here. And also on the back of that, we're obviously going to consider removing 3 projects. Being a ward member, I'm wondering if extra, particularly financial information is available for those, particularly the development at Park Place. The prohibitive costs, were they considered before, the proposal was brought to the committee? Because it's fairly evident from even just looking at the site that there would be significant costs there. Was an assessment of that before the proposals came to committee? And is any additional, particularly financial information, available for the new additions that are proposed here, and the additions, the proposals for removal?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. If members agree the report's recommendation, the proposal would be to update the Strategic Housing Investment Plan that was agreed at the Housing Subcommittee in March before submission to the Scottish Government. So I'd be quite happy once that plan's been updated and that contains more detailed financial information to circulate that to members for their information. In terms of specifically the Park Place development in Lockerbie, developments delivered through the Strategic Housing Investment Plan need to meet cost benchmarks that are set by the Scottish Government. Generally, the benchmark for a residential property is between 70 and 84,000, depending on the size of the property, and the average cost per unit is somewhere in the region of 120,000. Now, in the past, when we've taken complex developments through the Strategic Housing Investment Plan, we found ourselves in the situation where the costs of particular developments have increased very significantly during the course of the project. The most kind of notable example being Friars Venel in Dumfries, where the council was asked to make additional financial contributions to allow the development to go forward, and that was funded through council tax second homes income. This year there is no money available in that budget because it was agreed at full council that the total income would be allocated to the Town Centre Living Fund. So where projects have been assessed as financially difficult or unviable this year, then RSLs are making the decision to not proceed with those developments because the council is unable to support the additional costs that might be incurred. However, in relation to the Park Place development, we've had discussions with Springfield Developments, who are a private developer who specialise in taking forward projects that can be perceived to be difficult in partnership with registered social landlords, and we've asked them to specifically relook at the site in Lockerbie to see if they're able to make it work using their own financial reserves or whatever business approach they may have, which is different from the public subsidy. So that one is being looked at, and there is the possibility that it could come back for re-inclusion if they can get it to work financially. But really the approach that we're taking is to try and manage risk and try and manage financial exposure to the council, because I think the members, certainly for those that were on the Housing Subcommittee, became very frustrated that sometimes we'd have projects in and regularly be coming back requesting an additional £100,000, perhaps an additional £200,000, and we're trying to manage the financial exposure to the council. Unfortunately, that means on some occasions that some sites are difficult to deliver affordable housing that meet the cost benchmarks. But we are exploring alternative approaches with Springfield developments to use their private sector expertise in those circumstances. So a fairly long answer, but I hope it addresses some of the point that you make.
You talk about Springfield developers. Do you have a timescale of when we might have a recommendation coming to committee for?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We met with them last week, and they're actively going about looking at a small number of sites that are presenting difficulties to registered social landlord partners. They've also had early discussions with Lordburn Housing Association, Cunningham Housing Association, and I believe are going to meet with DGHP shortly. It would be difficult to put an exact time scale on it, but what we want to do is maximise the development that's happening in the region and maximise the use of our resource planning assumptions. So we intend to set up a further meeting with them in the near future and look at progress that's been made. I mean, I think the answer would be we'd bring a report back as soon as possible, because the issue is that development inevitably is can be very complex, and we want to make sure that any information we bring back to committee is correct and that projects are deliverable when they come to committee.
Okay, thanks. Ian Blake and then Jim.
Thank you, Chairman. It's in relation to paragraph 3.7 and the recommendation 2.4, where there's a proposal to remove the target to deliver 20% quota of one-bedroom properties. I'm a bit concerned about this because it appears to me that we're wasting valuable time. I appreciate there's with 2.5 that it said should the Scottish Government decide to remove the measures that are in place to mitigate these difficulties, that it would be the quota would be put back. But I personally think that's just a waiting time. I think we're losing every year we're losing this 20% opportunity to build up the single bedroom stock that most of us agree is necessary.
Jim.
Yep, thanks, Chair. I mean, this request is in front of members today following discussion at the Development Forum. The issue that the registered social landlord delivery partners face is that one-bedroom properties often don't provide the flexibility for households to change over time. That can be as people, as families grow, or perhaps older people require care or support in their home, or require a relative to live with them to allow them to be maintained in the community as long as possible. So one-bedroom properties, if they're built in large concentrations, can become, not all the time, but can become the focus of antisocial behaviour, and at times can become low-demand properties. So there's a kind of tension between the changing pattern of households in the region and the properties that people actually aspire to, and properties that provide the greatest flexibility. The reason that the report is recommending that we move back to creating primarily two-bedroom properties. However, the report also recognises that in certain circumstances, one-bedroom properties will continue to be delivered. It's not that they won't be developed, it's just they won't be developed in line with the 20% target. And the second recommendation about reinstating the target, should the Scottish Government change their plans in terms of mitigating the impacts of the bedroom tax, is to allow us to implement that decision quickly without the need to come back to committee again to get a second agreement to do that. So we hope that the recommendations provide the assurance that we can adapt to changes in the political environment quickly. Now, I hope that answers your question, but happy to explore further if required.
It answers the question. I don't particularly agree with the answer, but to answer the question, certainly.
Thanks. Okay, I've got Jim Dempster, Rob Davison and Ian Carruthers in that order. Jim?
Thanks, Chair. Oh, well, Ian will not be surprised to say I can't agree with him, because I have terrible experience about one-bedroom properties, and I think this is a good move. And I would presume that with new developments, there would be a housing needs assessment carried out to determine what the demand actually was for one bedroom rather than having a specific amount whether you need them or no. So I very much support the proposal, and it's something that I'd want to see happen in my area, that it would be removed unless the housing needs assessment determined that there was additional requirement. And the only other thing, and I think Jim talked about it anyway, that I thought we got a regular progress report on all the ship projects and how they were developing, time scale for completion, etc., etc. And if it doesn't come all the time, I'd certainly, given that this is a new committee, want to see one fairly regularly. We used to get them to the housing sub, but that doesn't exist anymore. So a ship progress programme on all the projects, I think, would be useful for members just to understand where we are and how soon we're going to achieve targets.
I take it that wasn't a question, Jim. Rob?
Certainly support the recommendation. I don't think it's particularly sensible either as a good use of public money in terms of mitigation or the use of scarce capital funds by our partners to build houses that are not actually as efficient in terms of their use as units as they might otherwise be, simply to try and deal with a policy that's basically wrong. That's where we've ended up. But the fact of the matter is that it's not so very long ago that the trend was very much away from building one-bedroom properties simply because they're not actually very efficient. They're not as useful to housing associations as two-bedroom properties. You can accommodate many fewer types of circumstance in them. It simply demonstrates that the original policy that gave rise to this is a thoroughly bad idea. What I do want to move on to, however, is very much in line with what Councillor Wilson was saying about appendices and information. I wonder whether it's been some considerable time since I've had anything to do with strategic housing, for example. It's a new thing that this is now incorporated into the main committee as an area of activity. It might help members, I think, particularly given some of the discussion we've had around these specific issues, if we looked at some aspects of working this into seminars, training, etc., that there's maybe a degree of familiarity that we could do to build up in relation to this area of policy.
Rob, I'll let Derek come in on that. Yep.
Thanks, Chairman. Thanks, Councillor Davidson. I think that's a very helpful suggestion, and one given that we now have 21 members fulfilling the strategic housing function, both in terms of training and awareness raising. That's something that more than happy to prioritise as a seminar in the first instance, and on an ongoing basis it's more than appropriate to have a regular report on the progress with the ship. And so therefore we can combine best practice by ensuring that what comes before members is for decisions with the fullest of information, but at the same time that at seminars we can have an engaging opportunity to discuss the wider policy implications, involve partners, RSLs in that, and quite clearly we would anticipate that given the national focus on this with the programme for government, that it is going to be something that Dumfries and Galloway is going to have to demonstrate that it's making its contribution to the national targets. So I think it's a very timely suggestion and one that officers very much welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Ian Carruthers.
Thanks, Chairman. If Councillor Dempster wants to move that we have a subcommittee, a housing subcommittee, I would happily second them. I would like to see that coming back, even if it is to the Communities Committee. But in regards to housing needs and demands assessment, one bedroom property, I suppose going back to Councillor Blake's question, Jim, for yourself, I think, how does a local housing strategy and the housing needs and demands assessment, what does that say in regards to the 20% allocation? And I think you maybe touched on the bedroom tax or the under occupancy charge. You said that that's been alleviated through Scottish Government. Is that the case? Just so we've got a clear understanding that I think we set up these one bedrooms in particular at the time because we felt that that might be a financial detriment to a large number of people who are trying to access social housing. Just that's the kind of concerns I'd like to see alleviated, and that what we're actually proposing now meets the actual need through the local housing strategy and the housing needs demands assessment.
Thanks, Chair. The Housing Needs and Demand Assessment concluded, along with many other policy documents, that obviously we've got an ageing population and we have an increase in single-person households. So in terms of the population profile, on the face of it, it indicates a demand for smaller properties. But it goes back to the issue about what's the best means of meeting that need. and certainly discussions, again, maybe even with like partners in social work and health. Again, they prefer to have properties that have greater flexibility to meet people's needs over time. So, for example, in a one-bedroom property, if a single person got married, wanted to have a family, then that necessitates a move from that property, whereas the two-bedroom properties are more flexible over time as people's circumstances change over time. In terms of the allocation process, which obviously for a large part of our housing stock, that happens through the Common Housing Register, which is known as Homes for D&G. And at the moment, single-person households are eligible to apply for two-bedroom properties. So there's no difficulty in terms of single people accessing the two-bedroom housing stock. In terms of the single-person subsidy, at the moment, the Scottish Government have indicated that they'll continue to mitigate the impact of that policy so that people that are under-occupying their properties don't suffer any financial disadvantage. And the Scottish Government have also indicated that that's a long-term policy aspiration that they have. And that's why we think at this point in time it's a reasonable recommendation to put in front of members, because it's in that national political policy context that the recommendation's been made. But the report does recognise that it is possible for that to change over time, and if it does, we will revert back to the 20% quota being delivered, because that would mean that people would be less likely to suffer financial disadvantage should the current mitigation measures be removed.
Thank you, Chairman. That certainly answered the question. Thank you.
I'll start again. Members are asked to 1, note the resource planning assumptions for Dumfries and Galloway Council. That's in section 3.3. 2, agree to include the new sites listed in the Strategic Housing Investment Plan at 3.5. 3, agree to remove the sites listed from the Strategic Housing Investment Plan at 3.6. 4, agree to remove the target to deliver a 20% quota of one-bedroom properties through the Strategic Housing Investment Plan at section 3.7. And 5, agree that should the Scottish Government indicate an intention to remove the measures currently in place to mitigate the impact of the under-occupancy charge, the 20% quota will be restored. That's recommended at 3.7. Happy to agree? Thank you very much. We now move on to item 10, which is the tackling poverty in Dumfries and Galloway, report by, again, Head of Customer Services. This report provides members with an update on the progress with tackling poverty in the region. It also presents a number of strategic proposals to ensure we continue to deliver our commitment to tackle the causes and effects of inequality and poverty. Harry Hay is here to answer any questions, and there are other experts in the room to pick up specific points if need be. So I'm minded to go straight to questions. Graham?
Thanks, Chair. So it's actually on 2.9 when you read into it. Agree to allocate £15,000 available tackling poverty funding to the Poverty Alliance, poverty training for elected members and officers. And looking at Appendix 9, when they break down the costs of this, £15,000 to run one-day courses for elected members and officers. And these are going to be delivered in council buildings. I can't see where you're getting the £15,000. Is there a jolly there? Is there a three-course meal? I mean, I can't understand where you've got to £15,000. Yeah. And you're not actually paying for a venue. So where are these costs coming from? There's not a clear breakdown here.
Thanks, Graham, for the question. Kindly moderate. We're no a jolly. Nobody here goes in a jolly.
Jollies in the past, Chair.
Name them and shame them. You can do it outside this room. We're here to do strategic business today. Harry?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, we've certainly had feedback that these sessions have been very useful in the past, and in fact I think they're absolutely critical to ensure the cultural change across the organisation is in place. It's for officers, as many officers that need it, and also for elected members, and it's up to 30 sessions across a whole financial year. So on that basis, as has been pointed out, accommodation is provided to try and keep it as cost effective as possible from council premises. It will be for the trainers' time, transport, and obviously some appropriate catering, certainly not a three-course meal, Chair.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. I would just like to say I completely welcome all these proposals for tackling poverty in our region. I think there's too many people in our society today who are living in poverty, and I very much welcome the opportunity for elected members to learn more about how we can, as a council, deal with the issues around poverty and make sure that fewer people in our region suffer as a result. One thing I would like to see is some sort of monitoring of these actions. I think that there's some very innovative ways of tackling poverty here that certainly, maybe have only been, a limited trialling across the whole of the UK. Is there some form of monitoring that we can see of these? And it would be good to hear about some detail on that.
I think we would probably put that into the recommendations if the members are mindful. Anyone else? Not in that case, we'll move to recommendations. Members are asked to note the programme for the Tackling Poverty in Dumfries and Galloway Conference, which will be held on the 16th of October, Appendix 1 in paragraph 3.14. 2. Note the arrangements to develop breakfast clubs in schools, Appendix 2 in paragraph 3.26, which will utilise the previously agreed £400,000 policy development funding allocated in 2017-18 for that purpose. 3. Note the proposal for enhanced anti-poverty provision across the region based on a participatory budget and approach, Appendix 3 and paragraphs 327 to 330, which will utilise the previously agreed £250,000 policy development funding allocated in 2017-18 for this purpose. 4. Agree to allocate £1.2 million of the available tackling poverty funding to the Anti-Poverty Family Support Team project, Appendix 4. 5. Agree to allocate £250,000 of the available tackling poverty funding to the Home Energy Help Project for Fuel Poor Household project, that's Appendix 5. 6. Agree to allocate 175,334 of the available money to the Welfare and Housing Options Support Project, that's Appendix 6. 7. Agree to allocate 294,500 of the available tackling poverty funding to the Housing Options and Homeless Service Improvement Team Project, Appendix 7. 8. Agree to allocate 10k of the available tackling poverty funding to support the Tackling Poverty Coordination Group and the Tackling Poverty Reference Groups, that's Appendix 8. And 9. Agree to allocate 15,000 of the available tackling poverty funding to the Poverty Alliance Poverty Training for elected members and officers. And 10. Agree the Anti-Poverty Strategy Refreshed Action Plan for 2017 to 2018, which is Appendix 10. And then 11. Comment on the Scottish Government consultation. There's been no comment on that, so we take it as read. And the only thing I would add, this is a purely personal thing, having gone through the Poverty Alliance training in the past in a previous life, I can tell you, your eyes will be open, and I would advise every single member in this committee to actually go to that training. If I could have my way, I'd make it mandatory, but I don't have that power. Okay, so there's the hint for the chair. I'd like to see you all at that training. Okay, so have we agreed with the recommendations? Yeah, right, thank you.
Monitoring and evaluation.
The only thing we needed to add was the monitoring and evaluation, and I think we need. I would suggest regular updates back to this committee, Derek.
Yes, no, that's understood, Chairman. A very, very helpful suggestion. That was taken as read, that there would be robust monitoring and evaluation, but building that into the forward programme of this committee is very helpful.
Very much. We move on to item 11. Excuse me. Okay, we'll move on to item 11, Town Centre Living Fund report by the Head of Customer Services again. This report asks members to consider the applications for funding from the Council's Town Centre Living Fund, which was previously agreed as part of our budget development process. Jim O'Neill again and Jamie are here to answer any questions that need be. So again, I'm just minded to go straight to questions. Jim?
Thanks, Chair. One or two. Certainly around 2.3, in the recommendation, which is carry out initial work at 52 Main Street, Kirkconnell. I recall when we were on EEI committee that we set aside, and I think it was £100,000, and with that it was to deal with 4 properties. One in Sanker that thankfully DGHB have taken control of, one in Stranraran's house, one in Lockerbie, and 52 Main Street, Kirkconnell. So I suppose my first question is, what's happened to £100,000? Because it should be the funds that's being used to carry out this work, if indeed the work needs to be carried out. Allied to that, and it's maybe not for this committee, but nevertheless, we in the E&I committee 2 or 3 years ago asked for a derelict property strategy to be brought forward. It's never happened yet, and maybe we need to communicate an inquiry to the E&I committee to say we would be interested in where the derelict property strategy was. And lastly, just by information, and if that information is not available today, I'd be happy just to have it in email form if members happy to be shared with members. I understand that nowadays we cannot put a claim on the property to offset any expense we have. We can try and reclaim the money we spend, but we can't actually put a condition on the sale of the property or the sale of the land to recoup money that we invest. So there's a big issue there for us if that is the case, and that's my understanding. So I'd be grateful if I could get some information on that particular inquiry.
Thanks, Chairman. I'll let Jim and Jamie deal with some of the specifics, but the overall point in relation to the E&I committee, obviously not in a position to have that information, but certainly make sure that arrangements are provided to members on the detail of that. Certainly my understanding is there's a clear need to distinguish between the commercial and the residential property, and therefore this committee is dealing with the residential property, and hence why it's been brought forward under this report today. But the member does make a very valid point, and I'm happy to take that up with my colleagues in E&I in terms of previous E&I committee decisions. Also advise the member that, as I understand it, work is being directed in relation to the derelict property strategy, and that will clearly involve officers from both E&I and communities, given we're dealing with both commercial derelict as well as residential. So certainly assure the member on the points made, and more than happy for Jim and Neil and Jamie to cover the other points, Chairman.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, obviously this report's in front of members, or this part of the report's in front of members, because it is a long-standing problem in the town of Kirkconnell and has caused quite a lot of community upset because of the condition of the property. So I think the report's just recommending that we adopt a pragmatic approach to resolving what is a long-standing problem. In terms of being able to recover costs, the Council has sought internal legal advice in that matter, and my understanding is that a charge can be put on the property. However, the Council can't force the sale of the property, so the money can only be recovered at the point of sale or on basically the death of the owner. So our intention would be to pursue the costs through the Council's debtor process, but also put a charge on the property, but it could be that that money is not recovered in the short term.
Jim, is it the same thing?
And just briefly, Chair, I'm absolutely delighted to hear that, and I'll be speaking to Jim about that, another project at the same time. And I only wanted to say that I have absolutely no objection. In fact, I fully support what's been proposed in terms of dealing with a property. It's just where it's funding that was challenging for me, no the proposals that are set before members today.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yep. David?
Thank you, Chair. Recommendation 2.2. I've got a number of questions just to help me better understand what's going on here. It says that we're going to agree to allocate. Do we mean give? Or is this a cap that money might be given? Or do we mean we're actually going to transfer that to someone? And that largely seems to be for them to well, sort of mishmash of a business plan and one or two repairs and cosmetic upgrades, but it describes the Stove Network as an artist-led organisation. Could we have a bit more clarity as to what type of entity we're dealing with here? And I was also concerned about the inclusion of the Dumfries High Street Limited, described as a separate entity, but it's bundled in with the same budget here, and it's getting money that we're giving to the Stove Network. Some clarity on that would be good. The relationship between the two, and then yeah, if I could just have those questions answered, then I'd like to come back to 327 afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. The Stove Network, in terms of being an artist-led organisation, are primarily founded by people from the artistic community. However, they have strong foundations in community engagement and have wider social, economic and regeneration goals as part of their objectives. So while their core purpose is the arts, they actually have an interest in delivering a whole range of public policy and have developed quite a strong track record in undertaking those activities. The mid-steeple quarter project in Dumfries, I think it is fair to say, is a very complex project because it involves buildings that at the moment have multiple uses, one of which is in council ownership, the others are in private ownership, and the Stove Network are looking to establish a community benefit organisation that would take forward the regeneration of that particular part of the town centre. The bid that was submitted is in the form of, as you can see in the report, 4 different work packages, and the report acknowledges that work will proceed in the form of various stages, albeit there won't be linear stages, and that funding will be released basically on the completion of each element to minimise the risk to the council. And we would also propose to set up regular monitoring meetings with the Stove Network to ensure that progress is made in terms with any decision that's made by members. It's a different approach to regeneration, and by its very nature is innovative, and because of that we don't have previous experience of this to refer to. And I think the report acknowledges the fact that it is innovative and has been recognised at a national level that is the case. So what we've tried to do is present to members as much detailed information as we can to try and give members the comfort that the proposals have in fact been thought through, have been well considered, and that where funding allocations are being proposed, where appropriate market testing or tendering will take place as well to ensure value for money. I don't know if that answers the member's question, if you'd like to come back to me.
Can I just come in? Actually, if you look at the last sentence of 3.2.1, I think that covers what David's there. If agreed, funds will be released by the council on an incremental basis as the project progresses to mitigate risk. So that obviously, that can only be done by robust monitoring and evaluation as it's going ahead. So does that answer your question, David?
Yes, usual background there. Really to drill down at what is the Stove Network? Is it a limited company? I think we've got sort of a due diligence to do here. We're giving money to. What type of organisation is it, and what's its relationship with Dumfries High Street Limited?
Okay, my understanding is the Stove Network is a third sector organisation, and the community benefit company would be set up by the Stove Network but would be a separate organisational entity that would have its own governance arrangements and would have its own different set of accountabilities. The community ownership company needs to be set up to allow the community asset transfer of the baker's oven building that's currently owned by the council, and a business plan would require to be developed to allow that asset transfer to take place. At this point in time, discussions have taken place with the council, but they're at the expression of interest stage, and one of the elements of the funding package is to allow the development of a comprehensive business plan to take place, so that that part of the proposal, the community asset transfer, is based on sound business principles, and the council's confident that in transferring the building, the Stove's aspirations will be properly delivered. So there's a second stage to that part of the process that involves a community asset transfer application and supporting business plan. But that's still to be developed.
Okay, thanks. Jane? Sorry, well, you've had about 3 questions and somebody waiting to get in for the first time. Jane?
Thank you. I think that in many ways this is commendably open. I mean, the business, the information that is laid out here tells people exactly what is going to happen. But I do wonder, Chairman, about protection of people. I think the officer talked about tendering, and looking at this actually, I don't really see that that's. I think it's really rather explicitly suggesting that freelance contracts will be assigned to people and organisations already engaged, and in others the contracts will be offered openly to local businesses. And I mean, the council does not want it to get itself into a position whereby it is providing money which then causes difficulties in the community, and we must not get ourselves into that position. So I want to know how we are going to be absolutely sure that we move forward, move this project forward, which I hasten to add, I actually think is absolutely first class. It's exactly the sort of thing which we should be doing in Dumfries, but for goodness sake, let's not create problems for ourselves and for organisation that is trying to do its best to do this. So how do we make certain that we do not create difficulties for the community here in Dumfries? I want to be absolutely certain that there are rules for what is tendered and what isn't tendered, and how this works, and what is our locus.
Well, absolutely, Jen. I think your points are well made. But I think the approach we should be taking here is how can we help things happen, not how can we stop things happening. And I think that, for me, is the crucial part of this. Derek, you want in?
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to say that quite clearly this is an important initiative of national interest to the Council. This concept was only agreed a matter of months ago as part of the budget development brought forward by the then administration. We are determined to ensure that we see a speedy action, and we play an enabling role rather than a hindering role. I can assure members I've listened to the points that have been made today. They're well made, and they're made with balance and reasonableness. I need to assure all members that due diligence, the appropriate requirements we make of any organisation, whether we pay them £500 or whether we pay them £50,000, will be followed, and therefore what we'll ensure is when this fund continues to be taken forward, given there's the best part of £900,000 still to be spent, we'll ensure in future reports that the detail of that is set out in terms of the status of the organisations. But in the meantime, I would certainly assure members that no funding will be given unless any organisation has complied with the basic requirements of the Council in terms of being legally constituted body and comply with our own high standards of governance. And therefore, we'd hope that that reassures the member that we've struck the right balance between making things happen, but ensuring that we have diligence in relation to following the public pound.
Thanks very much. David, I'll just let you back in a second. So just to be clear, Derek, when this was set up, there wasn't any firm criteria because we were looking for innovative ideas coming forward from the public, right? As opposed to us telling them what we were going to do to them. Yep. We were asking them to tell us what they wanted us to do for them. Yep. Am I getting that right? Yeah. So that's the community engagement part that we need to have here, and this is that it would take it forward. So is there any plans then to maybe put some form of criteria down as we would spread this across the region?
That's very helpful. Your assessment is quite right that it is about grassroots engagement. It is about responding to the ideas of people rather than the council being seen to know best. That's certainly the philosophy. We need to strike that, though, once we now have some learning from these early stages to ensure that in the allocation of what is a sizable amount of money, that we can give potential applicants a clear bit of guidance in terms of what would potentially constitute a good application and what some of that criteria would be. So again, we're more than happy to discuss that in full detail with all political groups as that emerges, and that's something we'll take away from today to ensure that that fits with members' expectations.
Thanks. And just before I let David in, that external scrutiny, if they become this separate organisation, I'm assuming it'll be Oscar or somebody like Oscar. So if that's the case, the external scrutiny will be far more stringent than even the stringent proposals we would put in internally. So there'd be a double whammy there in terms of making sure they get the money goes where the money should go. David, I'll let you in, and then I think we'll move on after that. Yeah.
Thank you once again, Chair. Yes, that's one of the things we should help to make things happen. The community asset transfer is a very good thing, and as are the other ideas for participation. And I also think it's great that these organisations should present us with business plans. My question here is, should we actually fund their business plan and fund their events that may be at their own existing facilities like their cafe, etc.? And if we were again into a position of funding business plans for groups making proposals, should we then fund rival business plans, and where's it all going to end? We don't appear to have a policy in place to handle this yet, and I think this is too large an amount of money to commit in the absence of such a policy.
Okay, I think that's a statement rather than a question.
It's a statement.
That's fair enough. Rob?
Thank you, Chairman. I think that the approach that the Stove Network is talking about and proposes here may be concerning some members simply because it is, to the best of my knowledge, a fairly unique way of trying to address a problem which I do think everybody here recognises is substantial and has proven effectively intractable. Certainly in the past 10 years of my experience. We've done lots of things in Dumfries Town Centre which have been successful. They've been public realm improvements, and while they're always a matter of taste, I happen to like them. I do think that they have made a material improvement to many aspects of the town centre over the past 10 years. What we've not been able to do is make any serious inroad into a fundamental problem, which is the woeful underutilisation of the buildings that surround the public spaces that we've spent significant amounts of public money on making nice. They are a very substantially wasted asset in almost every respect. Many of them serve neither retail nor accommodation purposes. This is clearly about accommodation in the first instance. But the sort of mixed economy approach that the Stove is looking at may very well be the right way forward. It is, at least at this point, I would assess, worth a try. I think we have to do it on the basis that we recognise that it's worth a try, because we don't have necessarily something clear and off the shelf to measure it against. But, you know, at some point someone has to make the first step. And it would be rather nice, I think, perhaps for this council to be at the forefront of things from time to time. I think that might be, well, not always a comfortable place to be, sometimes rather a good place to be. That notwithstanding, I recognise what's been said about this being a large amount of money. I think when we're talking about updates on what's happening, we do at least have precedent in other large projects that we have been involved with, where we have not necessarily been a massive funding shareholder, but where we have had a significant amount to do with the project. KIRKCUDBRIGHT Art Gallery springs to mind. The major funder was HLF, but we had regular updates on what was happening with that as it was developing and going on. I think we should be looking at a similar approach here. This is massive stuff, potentially, and I think we should have a good handle on it as a committee. I don't know what the officers would feel about the frequency with which something could be brought back, but I think 6 months would be the minimum, and perhaps updates more regularly, depending on capacity and what to do. I think crucial, though, that we have a firm grasp of it as it goes forward.
Thanks, and I'm going to move on. Just one personal thing here. There used to be a derelict property, or there is a derelict property strategy. Does that get updated on a regular basis, and can that be made available for members? Yeah. Yeah.
Where director has offered to pass your request to E&I because it's an E&I issue, it's no a communities issue.
No, I've got all that. No, I'm asking for the regular, for it to be brought back to this committee. That's my point. When it's all done, it needs to come back on a regular basis to this committee. Now, we didn't want a one-off update on what used to happen in EEI. We wanted this on a cycle. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. And the other bit, if I'm picking this up right, Rob, we need to put another recommendation in to receive regular updates as these projects go forward. Am I right? Yep. Derek, you want in?
Yeah, no, thanks, Chairman. Just to reaffirm that the derelict property strategy requires joint work between ourselves and E&I colleagues, and can assure all members that myself and Alistair Speedy are due to have these discussions. We've had clear direction from members that that's requires to be one of their highest priorities, and therefore that information will come forward. If that requires to come to either a joint committee or to the committee separately, we'll take governance advice and work that one through, but be assured it's high on the agenda. More than happy that we make this Town Centre Living Fund a standing item on the future business of this committee, and that would allow us to therefore ensure that given there will be potentially further applications coming forward, that it's a consistent agenda item, and that makes perfect sense to do that.
I think so. Thanks very much, Derek. I think what I'm also a wee bit worried about here is that if we can create an island again called housing, where in actual fact housing goes right across all the council directorates and external partners, so it should be as open and outgoing as we can, rather than making it insular back into the housing subcommittee again. And but that's obviously for another day. Okay, so I'm moving to recommendations. Right, we're asked to consider the application of funds from the Town Centre Living Fund, okay, which we've discussed that. Agreed to allocate £99,888.70 to the Stove Network to take forward the Mid-Steeple Quarter project. That's in sections 3.21 to 329. 3, agree to allocate 6k to carry out initial work at 52 Main Street, Kirkconnell. And 4, agree to allocate 70k to enable essential wind and water repairs to be carried out at the properties 307049 Friars Venel, Dumfries, which is section 3211 to 3212. And an extra one in there is to receive regular updates and monitoring reports. Okay, happy with that? Right. David, we're past the debate on it. Sorry?
Excuse me. Yes, I'd like to make a motion against the awarding of the 99,000 on the grounds that community asset transfer, there could be a conflict between giving someone a building and funding their business plans to do so. And if we had a policy which better explained how we dealt with such a situation, it might be better. But in the absence of such a policy, I would be against such a big allocation.
Do you have a seconder? Right. You have a seconder?
Not that I'm aware of.
So you have no motion. Right. So we go to the recommendations. Have we agreed the recommendations? Agreed? Do you want us to record your dissent?
Yes, please.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. So it's agreed. Yeah. Okay, move on to item 12, the review of housing support contracts. This report asks members to make decisions which will ensure we have comprehensively assessed the effectiveness of existing housing support contracts. It is essential that this work is undertaken to ensure that future arrangements deliver council priorities and secure best value. Lorna Campbell is here to take any questions on the report. And again, I'm minded to go straight to the questions. Rob?
Thank you, Chairman. Just very briefly, looking at the timescales at 310 and findings outcomes coming back to this committee for approval, can we just nail down when that's going to happen? Because clearly this is something that might have financial implications, etc. And obviously future budget considerations. So I think indication of when we're going to get it back here would be helpful.
So so I've got the question right, Rob. What you're saying is the third bullet point at 3.10 on page 237. Is that what you're referring to? And it's the timescales, November 17 to January 18. And how will that fit in with the budget setting process for 2018-19? Am I right?
And I guess just a supplementary as to whether this is being brought back to us for information or for decision.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Chair. I think what we anticipate is, detailed in 3.11, that we would come back to this committee early 2018-19 with proposals. Obviously, if there's any financial impacts of changes to any of the contracts, we would obviously be coming back to committee for approval on that.
I'll come back in. That's too late for the budget setting process, because you'll not have a budget set at that stage, or start, because the papers have to be ready for that sometime in February, don't they?
Yep. I appreciate that, Chair. I think just the way the report sets out the scale of these contracts and the number of contracts involved, that to get financial information back before this year's budget setting process is going to be too tight a timescale. We wouldn't be able to do a proper analysis of what's needed in these contracts in that time frame.
Right. So how do we deal with it then when there's no money to pay you? If the budget process was to show that there was no money for that, how would we then deal with that? Because we've painted ourselves into a corner.
At the moment, the money that's funding these contracts is an ongoing commitment. So the anticipation is that ongoing commitment remains until we've completed this review process and determined actually what's needed going forward.
This is kind of sideswiped this year, because I would have liked personally to have seen all that being able to be included in all the political groupings' budget setting process as they were drawn forward through December into January, as we reach finalisation of. I mean, opposition, for example, might want to put in a budget that said no. So how do we make sure that they're treated fairly? Because it's not only an administration's function, it's a whole council function, and we have to be absolutely fair across the board here, that every political grouping gets exactly the same information. So how are we going to let them know, or would we have a rough idea? I think I'm not wanting to be awkward here, Lorna, but we need to try and bottom out here how we're going to do that. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. No, hear the clear message from members. This is certainly something we've got to strike the right balance. This is important work that's carried out for vulnerable people, and therefore we want to ensure members have the fullest information. What I think we can commit to is ensuring that a report comes forward to the December committee, which would be in advance of the budget setting, that would provide members with sufficient information to at least have the basic ability to make decisions in terms of budget setting. Members can make decisions in relation to that. What we clearly want to ensure is you have the fullest information in the wider implications and consequences, especially given the vulnerable groups that we're dealing with in relation to these contracts.
Thanks, Derek. I think that would be really helpful, and if that can be done, at the end of the day, you can give us best evidence. It doesn't have to mean the final evidence. It could be best evidence at the time. I think that's way forward. Anyone else? Ian?
No, I think that proposal does have merit. I think most of these contracts, a lot of them have been in place for over 10 years, and I think to rush it at this stage would not be appropriate. But if we did get that information back in December, it certainly would be helpful.
Thanks, Ian. You happy with this, bringing it back for December? Yeah. Okay. Harry, did you want in?
No, just to echo that, Chair, I think we've picked up from former budget development processes a lot of questions in relation to this matter, and what we wanted to do, as the Director has mentioned, is give members the fullest, robust information to make informed decisions that at the end of the day are going to affect some of the most vulnerable in our region. We'll obviously have to be heavily involved from a legal perspective as well, and some of the budgets that we've actually got in place are already committed following a robust procurement process. So that's all the type of information we'll bring back to elected members as quickly as we can. The time scale that's outlined in the report is what we have produced based on our legal advice on how to do this robustly and transparently. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Harry. Anyone else? No? Okay then, so if we're happy to move to the recommendations. We're obviously asked to note the historic position of housing support, which we've done. 2, agree to extend current contracts as required. And 3, agree to receive a future report detailing the outcomes of the review of housing support and associated outreach and advice services in order that recommendations can be considered. Paragraphs 3 to 311. I think we need to just add in there as well, and to receive a report in December, the December committee, giving us best information possible at that time to help with the budget setting process. Right? We comfortable with that? Okay. Thank you very much. Move on to item 13. Thanks very much, Lorna. Move on to item 13, inclusive play. Over the last few months, the Council has actively promoted the role of play in encouraging healthy lifestyles and social interaction. The public feedback has highlighted the value communities place on good quality accessible play parks. Therefore, this report sets out proposals which will not just provide the necessary play equipment, but the necessary ancillary facilities which are essential in providing inclusive play experiences. The report also recognises the need to work with communities in utilising external funding to deliver the ambitions of local people. So a future report to this committee will provide information on future potential investment options. Harry Thompson's here again to answer any questions. Just a couple of things. I had a request from Councillor Scobie to address the committee as a councillor. Obviously, I've agreed to that, and we'll come to Councillor Scobie in a minute or two. But in the meantime, I'm happy to move straight to questions for Harry, if anybody's got any from elected members who are on the committee at this moment in time. Right. Okay, none. In that case, then, I'm going to let Willie speak, because I think it's 2 minutes you've got, Willie. And can we try and have a question in the 2 minutes? I'd just like to stress, though, it's only what's on the agenda. Right? If it's not covered in your papers, then there's no lobbying for anything else other than that. Right? You're an old hand, sir. I know how you work. Okay.
It's always good that you're still watching after me, Andy. Listen, thanks for giving me the opportunity at least to come and speak on this item, because I think it is an important item, as many of the others are as well. I do welcome the report, as I did when the previous leader of the council announced that he was making available in this year's budget the £500,000. And my question is really of Derek, the director, because when I spoke to Derek as this has moved on, he did say that he was hoping or making representations to try and increase the £500,000 in terms of the identified need to improve the toilet facilities for disabled kids and people using them. So I see that it's been taken out of the £500,000, and perhaps Derek could give an answer to that one. I also wanted to come to the committee because there's a great deal of frustration out there, particularly in Stranraer, that I can speak of, in terms of the Wigtonshire Family Support Group, in terms of the time that it is taking. And it really is a good story, but it can quickly go sour, because we should be accelerating this programme to the point where we are delivering, and no doubt it'll come back, and Harry will come back and say, well, we can't advance or progress it because of the weather. This was announced in February, kicking in April. And we're just at this stage. So I would like to see the committee looking for an acceleration. I heard Jimmy talking earlier about equipment. There's nothing more hurtful than those being included, because you can't get access to play equipment. And it's for kids who in Stranraer, for instance, have to travel 50 miles to Ayr to be included along with their brothers and sisters, their siblings. So this is a good news story, but we need to be moving it on much quicker than where we are at just now. And if we look at, and hence the reason for asking if Derek obviously hasn't been successful, if we look at the second bullet point on page 240, and while I really am pleased to see that Stair Park has been recognised as the appropriate place for this play park, as it will add value to that particular park. In this one, there are a number of areas where, it's not only about increasing play park equipment, but it's also about looking at young kids who are disabled and just look up at their brothers and sisters playing and they can't get access. So in our situation, as recognised in there, I believe that it should be a statutory requirement that disabled kids are looked after, and it should be added into it, and for Scottish and UK government to make available the resources under the Disability Discrimination Act to make resources available so that £500,000 can be increased continually.
You're straying off the subject for today. The subject today is these three play parks. I totally get where you're coming from. Exactly. As you know, this is a week for programmes of business for administrations getting announced. We, as an administration, have a programme of business that will be coming next full council, I believe, for ratification. Until that happens, of course, it's no part of the council's priorities, as you well know. So, and part of that was accessible play parks. And part of it was also another fund over and above this amount of money for other play parks elsewhere. I think your point's well made, and I think you've had a bit more than 2 minutes, right? So I'm minded now to move on to the recommendations. Okay. So thanks very much, Willie. Okay. So we're asked to agree that the locations chosen for the development of inclusive play sites should be Stair Park, Sederunt, Catherine Street, Dumfries, and Newington Leisure Centre, the Werrick and Annan, and the allocation of funding for inclusive play is outlined in paragraphs 3.2 of the report, and 3 to receive a report on the potential for investing in past developments across the region to a future meeting, which of course brings into the issue about our plans as an administration. So are we agreed? Yeah, agreed. Thank you very much. As previously indicated, I'll stand down for this next item.
Number 14, the Major Festivals and Events Strategy 2017-18 update report by the Head of Civic and Local Services. This report updates members on the delivery of the Major Festivals and Events Strategy 2014 to 2018 in its final year of operations and puts forward options for the reallocation of council funding that cannot be taken up by grant-funded organisations. Harry Thompson will take any questions on this report. Harry, have you got anything to add to the report?
Nothing to add at this point. Chair.
Cheers. Members? Adam?
Thanks, Chair. I don't have a specific question, but I would just like to say that although there is some sad news in this report regarding the Lockwood Jazz Festival and the Wild Film Festival, I think that this report comes on the back of a very successful Electric Fields event, which I was delighted to be able to go and do some PR work with, but unfortunately not make the event. But from what I've heard, it went very well, and it's a good success story for the region, along with all of the major festivals and events that we fund through this strategy. I think that looking at the options for where this underspend is to go at, I would definitely like to see it allocated to Dumfries Ice Bowl. There's a number of events that are going to be taking place at the Ice Bowl, which hopefully some of this money could go and help, particularly around all of the ice sports, ice hockey and curling and ice skating, and I hope that members would support that.
Thanks, Adam. Any other members? No. Oh, Jane?
Yes, I'm just sort of wondering whether the whole of it going towards the Ice Bowl events is actually the right thing to do. I'm sort of open in all of this because it's about marketing, right across the whole piece, Chairman. And there might well be other projects which could do with a little bit of marketing as opposed to it all being Ice Bowl. I'm absolutely open to that. whether or not we should simply put part of it aside at the moment and look and see whether other people want to plan. Why have we simply gone for ice bowl events? Why have we not looked at other events? I don't know. There's a rally going on at the moment and something else. So why have we chosen the ice bowl?
Harry? I think it's within the planning time frame for the rest of the financial year, and the events which were unsuccessful in their applications for this year, those have either taken place or are imminent. So in terms of what was left on the calendar, the events at the Ice Bowl taking place in December seem to be the most appropriate for support if members felt they wish to use the funding in that way.
Jane?
Okay, no, that makes no. I'm perfectly happy with that. I mean, I do think it's when you see people in the town in winter, it's very, very attractive. So I mean, I wonder if we can really up the game, and because I think marketing is incredibly important.
I think these events at the Ice Bowl have been very successful in the past as well. Any other members? No. Recommendation. Note that the delivery of major festivals and event strategy in 2017-18 is on schedule and consistent with its delivery in the previous 3 years of the strategy. Right. 2. Note the circumstances that have led Jazz Scotland and the Southern Uplands Partnership to inform the Council they are unable to deliver the Lockerbie Jazz Festival and the Wild Film Festival, respectively. Identify which of the options is preferred for the identified underspend of 14k in the 2017-18 major festivals and event strategy budget. 4. To return the underspend to the Communities Directorate balances or to allocate it to the Dumfries Ice Bowl events. And 5. Endorse the planning arrangements being put in place for the Kirkcudbright Festival of Light, paragraphs 311, 316. Members agree? Thanks. Could we get Andy back in, please?
Thanks very much, John. Move on to item 15, which is the annual Community Safety Survey. Results in next actions. The report by, again, Head of Civic and Local Services. Harry, again, will take questions. And again, I'm just minded to go straight to questions. Any questions? Jane?
No, that's a question rather than to say that I think the ability to break down into wards is very helpful, and actually just really, Chairman, to endorse it and say let's go forward with it. I think it's been a very successful bringing together of those services. I really think it's been really useful, and the community councils really relish that ability to use that team. Thanks.
Thanks very much. I'll make sure through Derek and Harry that gets fed back to the staff as well. I think they would appreciate it's nice to be thanked for good, diligent work. Anyone else? Graham?
Thanks, Chair. I've always had a good word for the community safety team. They've done a fantastic job across the area. 33 people present across the region. I've contacted them this week and last week, and they've got onto various issues in Lochsidle, including, I've got to say, overwhelming support of them. But one thing I flagged up in the past about the community safety team and that, we're still finding residents out there across the region are not keen on using the council switchboard because you could be 6th in the queue, you could be 7th in the queue. So we need to get this issue resolved and publicity for the campaign. But I know they're going around community councils, they're going around schools, people know what they're doing, but wider members of the public need to know there, because these constituents that contact me from Lochside the other day have never actually heard them, I actually haven't seen them present going about. But that's only one instance, so I think we need to get this a separate number for the community safety team that could be in locally advertised in the paper, because people are actually fed up of using that council switchboard.
Okay, thanks. Harry, can you pick anything up on that?
Chair, the programme of days of action within wards should raise the profile of the community safety team and other related partners within the local wards, and it's very much focused on enabling people within the communities to meet with the community safety team and get better information on how to contact them should they wish to. I think clearly the message within the survey is that there are pockets within the 12 wards where things are different within the communities. So, for instance, in North West Dumfries, there's clearly a higher level of people concerned about their safety, and that will direct some of our work over the next year or so as well.
Graham, yep. Anyone else? Dave?
Just like to say, I did actually take part in a community day action, and it's a very worthwhile exercise for all members the day it comes into the area. The only thing was the weather was shocking, but it was good to see southerness in different areas, but they were met well members of the public, and I think it's done well to get their profile out in the area.
What was your fixed penalty for? What was your fixed penalty for? Aye, okay. Right. Anybody else? No. Okay, in that case, thanks very much. We'll just move to the recommendations. Again, we're asked to consider the results of the Community Safety Survey for the reporting year 2016-17. Note the results and feedback will be available online and at customer service centres by the end of September 2017. 3. Note that engagement on the survey results will take place with organisations representing those with protected characteristics. And 4. Note that ward-level information will be presented to the 4 area committees and is being used to better determine appropriate detection and deterrence community safety operations. Happy with that? Thank you very much. Agreed. Item 16 is the Litter Prevention Action Plan, which advises members of arrangements for the preparation of Dumfries and Galloway Litter Prevention Action Plan and updates members on the Council's response to the Scottish Government's consultation on the draft Code of Practice on Litter and Refuge. Again, Harry, you seem to have got this one. So again, I'm minded just to go straight to questions. Well, in the absence, we'll just move straight to... Sorry, okay, David, sorry.
Thank you very much. Are there any unturned stones that I realise we're limited by sort of national legislation, but is there anything we could do locally to act against litter louts that we're not doing?
I think that's one of the key aspects of the development of the external litter prevention action plans, is engaging with local companies and local organisations in terms of how they relate with their customers to encourage them. For instance, some of the fast food outlets encourage their customers to act more responsibly in terms of dealing with their litter. Companies who have employees, and that will include the council, in terms of how employees impact on their environment around the company buildings, and also development of local community litter prevention action plans, so that specific communities will have a role in terms of putting out publicity and educational information for people within their local areas. So it's the development of litter prevention action plans. The council has one responsibility in terms of its overall litter prevention action plan, but the development of the external LPAPs is very important in terms of making it clear that it's not the council's responsibility in terms of litter. It's not its overall responsibility, because people individually have a responsibility for the litter that they create. And we need to drive that message out, because with limited council resources, we can't go on simply clearing up. The emphasis has to be very much on prevention. Okay,
thanks. Just purely in the personal thing, is there a way here we can, I suppose we have to be careful, but there is another arm of the council, which is like a quasi-legal body that grants licences for people to be open late for food and everything else at night time. Is there a way that some of this information and some of this, they can be required to participate in this as part of that, that licence, for example? I'm thinking particularly here, one in North West Dumfries, which is asking now to stay open from 1 o'clock right through to 24 hours a day. And I'm just throwing this in the ring to see what you come out with, Harry.
I think that's certainly something we would want to engage with our colleagues in licensing licensing and environmental health within the development of the litter prevention action plan for the council, to see how they can impact on external organisations and commercial organisations.
Well, that's fine. That's exactly what I was asked for. Jane, thank you.
What do we do about tapping into research that's been done to prevent people littering? What makes people litter? What do we do to tap into that? What information do we use? I mean, the Economist tells you that if you manage to get hold of young men and tell them it's not cool to litter, that's actually had an effect in the States. Whether it works here, I have absolutely no idea. But what are we doing to actually investigate and ask ourselves, what is it that you can tap into? Because, I mean, we've all driven along the roads and seen somebody chuck a bottle out of a window.
Apologies. So I've referred before at committee, I think, to the need to target a specific causes of litter, and one of those being on the roads of haulage companies. So working with them, they're one of the specific groups that have been highlighted for the external litter prevention action plans. So working with the haulage companies as well as the freight organisations and the ferry companies specifically in this area. There's a fair deal of information available in terms of behavioural impacts. So in terms of providing routes to bins, clearly marked routes to bins on our streets, believe it or not, can actually increase the amount of rubbish going into bins, and by default you would assume reduce the amount that's not going into bins. Clearly one of the groups that will be involved in the development of the council litter prevention action plan is very much our community assets team, and the street scene approach is very much geared at providing opportunities for people to do things differently and therefore help the council out rather than simply expecting the council to do all the work. So we'll be considering issues like that very much in development of the plan over the next few months.
Thanks very much. I'll just let in a second, Jim. I know that the team are really good at supporting community groups who want to do litter picks and stuff like that. Do you think there's room for another round of engagement stroke publicity for that? And what could we provide for groups to help them tidy up their own localities? Because nothing else is better than them doing it themselves. I think that's the first thing. And then if you maybe ask him and answer that, then I'll let Jim in.
We're very keen to assist local groups in terms of them helping themselves and helping the council in terms of litter picks and general tidies. One of the things we'll hope to bring forward over the next few months is a community spirit initiative to enable people to look after their neighbourhoods. One of the issues I've not been too happy to have to deal with over the last few months has been the issues regarding weeds, in particular in the Dumfries area. And you probably have noticed there's been significant investment, significant numbers out in the last couple of weeks dealing with weeds in some of the estates, particularly outside of the A75. So in the Lockerbriggs, Heath Hall areas and Lochside, Lincluden, as well as up Georgetown, there's been a fair amount of work going on to try and clear the backlog of weeds. But those types of initiatives, weeds collect litter as well as being vegetation, clearly. So that, the more weeds you have, the worse the area looks. And we'll certainly be looking to work with households and community groups over the next few months in terms of preparing for next year's season to reduce the occurrence of weeds and to act on them more quickly during the course of the season. We can supply materials, we can supply bags and litter pickers to community groups. We can provide supervision for them in terms of litter picking, and we would certainly be keen to work with volunteers coming forward. We have limited resources, and we anticipate over the next few years our resources will not increase in terms of local government financial settlements. So it's all the more important that we maximise the available energy and resources within local community groups to supplement what the council can do.
Thanks, Harry. Jim, and then Graham, and then I think we'll move to recommendations.
Thanks, Chair.
And Sean as well, sorry, and then we'll move to recommendations.
Harry just rattled my cage because I get harassed all the time about weeds. The Sanker public toilets used to be, can't see them for the weeds ground round about them. And we're not doing anything about it. So I hope that the teams don't just stop at Georgetown in Dumfries because there's a wider area to deal with, Harry, than just Dumfries. But having said that, what I was going to say was, I get fed up seeing trees and shrubs adorned with green bags through a dog dirt, because we have a council policy not to provide dog litter bins or dog fowl bins, whatever way you want to describe them. So, well, we did have. I don't see any specific dog litter or dog fowl bins lying about my ward, but I'd be delighted to see them if they're available. And that is the issue about, if the public actually come to us and say, this is what we would like, how do we get to providing them?
Just before anybody answers it, this is strategic paper, and that's weeds earn a litter. Some folk might call them a wildfowl meadow. Graham and I have had that discussion before. So I'm not even going to ask Harry to respond to that. So I've got Graham and then Sean. Yeah.
I'm happy to leave it, Chair, but Harry started it.
Thanks, Chair. Just when Harry was talking about weeds and that, obviously spraying weeds, sometimes you're spraying at the wrong time when the conditions are not right as well. I mean, so the glyphosate is something you've been using in the past, and some of the other, like trick or some of the other chemicals used in the past. The trick, which was used as an industrial weed killer, was banned through the European Union. You know, once again, we've suffered a lot from the European Union banning chemicals. No doubt, the glyphosate bans is on the cards as well. So that'll be another tool we'll not be able to use, not in agriculture and public as well. But need to spray these weeds when there's full leaves there. But some of the chemicals nowadays are not actually killing it. They're regrowing within 6 to 8 weeks, and this is where the problems lie. And Councillor Dempster's maybe talking about weeds, and the problem is the chemicals are not strong enough. This is what the issue is. We're finding that from farming ways as well, and it's going to be quite difficult.
Graham, it's like Jim's thing there. I understand the concern, but it's not actually the agenda item we're talking about here. And thanks for volunteering to help me rid the weeds in Lochside. That's awfully good of you. Or at least your expertise. Sean?
Yeah, just in relation to getting back to litter, I think there's something that's been trialled at the moment. I know it's been developed, but it's just the same kind of principle as the grit bins. So we're trying to map them in communities so that, you know, when you go onto the council website, you can see where your nearest bin is. And I think that's something that's been developed locally in Andale and Eskdale, but hopefully it could get rolled out across the region. I think it's about putting it into context. We're trying to tackle an issue. And, you know, you said that you have limited resource. I would say it's more than that. It's actually a reduced resource. And I think people still, it's about managing expectations, because people still think they get the same service that they got 10 years ago, which is not the case. So I think we need to kind of make people aware what we will do now. And, you know, it was just this week we were discussing it just locally. And then we got to the realisation that, you know, like parks, there'll only be a litter pick once the grass is cut. Whereas in the past, maybe it was done every week, or, you know, it was checked at the same time as the play park equipment was checked. So I think we actually have to be honest with the public. And if we're honest with the public and say that it is a reduced resource, then you're more likely to actually get volunteer groups that'll actually supplement the service that, let's face it, it is a reducing service. It's not, you know, it's not just stayed still for 10 years, it's reduced.
Sean, I wholeheartedly endorse that, and I think that really needs to be said to Harry, unless you particularly want to answer it.
Chair, I think the thrust of the Code of Practice, the draft Code of Practice on litter and refuse and the standards it sets is very much on an output specification, so rather than inputs. I think what people have expected is to see the street sweeper going up and down the street on a periodic basis, whether it's once a day or once a week, depending on their community. And what we need to work with communities on is an expectation that they see a certain standard of cleanliness on their streets, rather than expecting to see a council employee there on a periodic basis.
The point I was trying to make was that we need to actually communicate that through either the council website or through that, to kind of say, this is the service that we will provide, you know, so that people actually know that, you know, they can't expect to see something, you know, on a daily basis, etc. It's about managing expectations, and it's just actually making people aware of what the council will do, and then it might galvanise them into actually, you know, volunteer groups, etc. That was the kind of main thrust, I think.
Sean, that was exactly when I said I endorse exactly what you said, right? Because it's the way it has to start from the community. You know, it's not just the local authority's job to pick up litter. It's everybody's job not to drop litter in the first place, which is the prevention part that we're not really being focused in here. But that's a different matter. Do you want to say anything?
Just Harry, thank you, Chair. Harry mentioned in his introduction the very points that Councillor Marshall has made. The whole emphasis of the Communities Committee has to now be involving communities in the solutions and having honest discussions. As we said earlier, that we won't always be able to do what people may have expected happened in the past. Whether it did or didn't is sometimes a figment of imagination, but that's the perception at times, that things were always better. What we're bringing forward to this committee is proposals on the Community Spirit Initiative, and that's exactly what that's about. It's saying, here's what the Council can provide, and here's how we can help you to help yourself. So I'm sure that will reflect members' comments on this item.
Okay. Right, I'm going to move to recommendations. Okay, 1, agree the proposed arrangements for preparation of the Dumfries and Galloway Council litter prevention plan. 2, note the support arrangements in place to facilitate production of the Dumfries and Galloway Litter Prevention Action Plan and further engagement with external stakeholders on their individual litter prevention action plans. And note the response provided to the consultation undertaken by Zero Waste Scotland on behalf of the Scottish Government in respect of the draft code of practice on litter and refuse. Okay, we agreed? Right, thank you. Let's move on to appointment, item number 17. It's appointment to outside bodies. This report asks members to appoint 2 elected members to the region-wide Community Fund Management Committee. Again, Derek's here to take any questions on it, but Jim?
Only one, Chair, and I'm happy with the proposal that the Chair and Vice Chair that occupies these positions, but the region-wide fund, previously called the Wind Farm Voluntary Regional-Wide Fund, I thought we'd abolished that, and I thought we'd abolished it because there was no money coming for wind farms. And if you look at the Scottish Government guidelines on community benefit, it's quite clear that it should be invested, in inverted commas, in local communities. So I didn't understand where the money is coming from for this fund and why we should require to set it up.
Thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately, I don't have the detail. All I have is that there is an outside body, so it's not so much that a council organisation, it's an outside body. They've requested council representation. On that basis, I assume there's business to be transacted. The purpose of this report is to ensure that the council fulfils its obligation.
Absolutely, Jane. Just 2 seconds, I'll let you in. 4.1.2 actually sets out there where the 9 members are going to be drawn from. Jane?
Agree the recommendations with Chair and Vice Chair.
So you happy to move that, Jane? Thank you. Ian?
Isn't that actually the recommendation, the Chair and Vice Chair? I appreciate the positions were previously held by the Chair and Vice Chair of EEI, but there's not the recommendation that it's Chair and Vice Chair. I would actually like to propose Councillor Ingalls.
Jane moved the Chair and Vice Chair.
I'll second Jane. I'm happy to second that.
I'd like to make an amendment then.
Sorry?
I'd like to make an amendment and propose Councillor Ingalls.
You'd like to move an amendment?
Yeah. And propose Councillor Ingalls.
Councillor who?
Councillor Ingalls.
Right, okay. Have you got a seconder? Okay, Councillor Giusti.
I'll second.
Okay, we move to a vote, I think. It's up to you.
Chair.
Yeah, we're just moving the vote.
I'm just going to say to appoint 2 members. I believe the amendment only actually appoints 1 member.
No, the amendment appoints 1, yes, absolutely. So it's actually no competent to just appoint 1, Ian. You'll need a substitute as well.
I'm quite prepared to suggest the Chairman. Yes, yes.
I'll never sleep tonight, Ian, if you... Okay. Right, so your amendment is to me as the Vice Chair, and that makes it competent, yeah? Sorry, the substitute. Right. I'm just actually going to ask the governance officer because I can't be in both halves of the motion and the amendment. No. Yeah.
Well, it's up to yourself, Chair, whether you'd be prepared to accept that. But you are proposing that you are nominated as chair in the motion.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Chairman. It was only for inclusiveness. In that case, I'll propose Councillor Ingalls and Councillor Euston.
Who's seconding Councillor Euston? Okay, thank you very much. So, Claire, can you just a second, guys, can you just go through what the motion and the amendment are?
Right, just to sum up here, I've got a motion proposed by Councillor Maitland, seconded by Councillor Dempster, that proposes the chair and vice chair take the appointments of member and substitute. I've got an amendment proposed by Councillor Blake, seconded by Councillor Ronnie, proposing Councillor Ingalls and Councillor Euston as member and substitute. Correct?
Okay. Ready to move to vote?
Yeah. Chair?
Motion.
Vice Chair?
Motion.
Councillor Bell?
Amendment.
Councillor Blake?
Amendment.
Councillor Campbell?
Motion.
Crowther's not present. Councillor Davidson?
Motion.
Councillor Dempster?
Motion.
Councillor Euston?
Amendment.
Councillor Howie?
Motion.
Councillor Ingalls?
Amendment.
Councillor James?
Amendment.
Councillor Little?
Motion.
Councillor Maitland?
Motion.
Councillor Marshall?
Motion.
Councillor Ronnie?
Amendment.
Councillor Stitt?
Motion.
Councillor Tate? Councillor Wilson?
Motion.
Councillor Young?
Motion.
Motion's carried, 12 votes to 6.
Thanks very much. We'll move on to agenda item 18, Strategic Housing Forum. Again, report seeks members' agreement to put in place arrangements that support the delivery of the Council's role as a strategic housing authority for Dumfries and Galloway. Again, Jim and Jamie are here to ask you any questions if need be. Has anybody got any questions? That's the first thing. I would like to move that John, the Vice Chair, takes up that role, which was roughly level to what it used to be when this was with another directorate. I think that what it should be. Somebody second me? Councillor Stitt, second it. Any counter nominations? Okay, in that case, we'll do it one by one, I think, get it out of the way. So that, John, congratulations. The old army men in the room will tell you if you didn't move backward quickly, you get the job. The second part is to agree to nominate an additional 3 members from the Communities Committee to participate in the Strategic Housing Forum. I've already spoken to the leader of the Independent Group and the leader of the Conservative Group, and obviously ourselves. As John is part of the Labour Party of the administration, I'm going to suggest that there should be 1 SNP, 1 Conservative and 1 from the Independent Group, which then gets us a fair across the board representation. It isn't a decision-making committee. If you read through it, you'll see it's an advice thing. It's the coming together, all the social landlords, all the other parties and everything else. So we can do one of 2 things. If the SNP group, their leaders here, if you've got somebody you'd like to nominate today, we can just do it, or same with Jane, and I think the Conservative group, Ian, I spoke to Ian earlier, and I think he's probably shared it with you, Ian, so if you're prepared to nominate somebody today, we can just get the business done.
Certainly, we're certainly prepared to go down the inclusive route. As councillors Justy would like to put forward.
Mr. Justy?
Yeah, Justy.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Jane?
Nominate Councillor Howie, please.
Okay, thank you. Rob?
Nominate Councillor Little, please.
Okay. Any objection to that? Happy with that? Okay, we'll move it forward. Congratulations to the three of you. And again, the last part is to realign the target date for the development of the Council's local housing strategy from December 2017 to April 2018 for the reasons described in the report. And I think it's a technical reason, Jim, isn't it? You agreed? Okay, thank you. The last thing on the agenda is the update on the Viking HOARD, which we've asked for on a regular basis. Again, Harry is in here. I have to say, myself, Jane, Patsy, Doug Campbell and John accompanied officers up to see the HOARD up in Edinburgh, and it was really eye-opening, I think, and the experts in the room brought the thing to life. But again, I think I'm just going to let anybody ask Harry any questions they've got on where we are with this and have an update. Any updates, Harry, or whatever?
No, Chair. I think when we came to committee in June, it was with the anticipation of having made a bit more progress, but for various reasons, it's not been possible to arrange the high-level political meeting that had been anticipated at that point in time. That's I think that's still anticipated to happen over the autumn period. And there is a further officer meeting scheduled for the end of September. Unfortunately, for leave reasons, that's not going to happen until then. But certainly the engagement that has been so far has been very positive. We would anticipate being able to come to agreement on a long-term arrangement with the National Museum and to secure the HOARD for display in Kirkcudbright after its initial display in Edinburgh, as well as potentially reaching agreement on other items within the National Museum's collections which might be made available to the museum service within Dumfries and Galloway. That was certainly one of the things that I was quite impressed by, was the extent of items within the National Museum's collection when we visited, which actually originated in Dumfries and Galloway, and so there may be potential for securing some of those for temporary exhibition in the future as well. So happy to take any questions, Chair.
Jane?
It's really just more a point, actually. I, like you, Chairman, was impressed and encouraged by the enthusiasm of the experts, the curators there. And I mean, all that does actually, of course, is make me grind my teeth yet harder that we haven't been given it. But nevertheless, it is exciting. It really does open your eyes to the opportunities and to the story behind the HOARD. But that brings me to think, though, that we need to make a framework, get a framework organised whereby we are constantly refreshing that offer to the public in Dumfries and Galloway, and therefore making us a window on the world. So let us not take our foot off the accelerator in terms of being absolutely determined to get the right thing for us, for our region. Because, as we know, this will market ourselves to a very wide audience. So I would simply say, please, let's get a date for this sorted out so that we know what significant and representative actually means. Because at the moment, I'm afraid it's all still a bit wishy-washy.
Absolutely. I think the bigger picture here as well has to always be taken into consideration. We've spent £3.5 million or thereabout upgrading the facilities in KIRKCUDBRIGHT, but we've also got other facilities in the region that can benefit from artefacts that are being held up there. And I have to say, the discussions with Mr. Rintoul, is it Professor Rintoul, I think, Dr. Rintoul, were in the main very positive, but I didn't for any part of the time get the impression he was just saying things to keep us happy. there seemed a genuine, from amongst his senior staff, for us to, and I think the silver collection, I think, is it coming next year, isn't it? Is another thing, you know, and we're going to have to weigh this up over the years, because do we fight for 2 or 3 things to be there permanently and then take up space and then have interest drop off locally, for example? So there's a whole lot of factors going to have to come into play here as we take forward the museum strategy for the region. But this is a huge, huge help and a huge bonus for us. And I think, I don't know if John wanted to say anything about the visit, but for me, it just totally changed my view on the whole thing. No. On that then, so Ian, yeah?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm glad to see Dr. Rintoul has changed his approach from previous experience. In relation to paragraph 3.2, the pledge by Kirkcudbright Common Good Fund of the £100,000. Now, I appreciate it's moved on from that. We didn't inquire the HOARD. Has that been formally brought to an end? Are they aware of that? Have they been thanked for their offer of contribution?
I think that's a matter for a report to Kirkcudbright Common Good Fund, not us today. But your point's made, and it's well made. Is there should be. Have you any comment on that?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. You're absolutely right. It is a matter for the Kirkcudbright Common Good Fund. They meet at the end of this month, and that will be an item of business for them to determine at that subcommittee.
With that reassurance, thanks very much. Any more questions? Thanks everybody for your participation today and the civil way we conducted business. Thank you.
Lunch is available.
Lunch is available, but the Sederunt contingent have already been in it. So